Welcome to the show with no name for Friday, November 15th, 2013. I'm Bob Going with Gavin Murdoch and Jim Nikosha. Well, what you guys been doing all week?
You got a full house? I haven't done anything all week.
Really? What happened to my microphone? You guys just killed it. Okay, now we go. It's hidden in the pencil.
Granddaughter must be home. You got all those sharpened pencils for her, huh? Colored pencils.
Well, she's got the electric pencil sharpener in the kitchen.
So the pencils don't last too long.
No, they're always sharp. They're always sharp.
They're getting smaller and smaller.
And they are getting smaller and smaller. Pretty soon they will be too small to hide the microphone. Well, you know, I took the wife to New York on Wednesday.
Did you bring her back from New York as well?
And took her back as well.
Yeah.
And
what did you do there while you were there with your wife?
Well, we met up with noted presidential historian David Petrusha, who was already in the city. Took the megabus down, and actually they were his tickets. He had bought them in advance, and then he had to be in New York the day before. Oh. So obviously he wasn't going to come back just to use the tickets to come back again.
Paul Tonko does that.
Well, yes, but the taxpayers are paying for that.
Oh, well, yeah.
He's got Air Force One and all that. So anyway, we had a really nice dinner at the Palm on 50th Street, just off of Broadway, which is just a really classy joint, and the price was, they had a fixed price, high quality lunch for $25 and change. That was really outstanding in every way. You got the soup and salad, you got the entree, you got your fancy dessert. It's
good deal.
That was for lunch.
Well, yeah, but it was a real lunch.
A real lunch.
It's like you skip dinner.
Yeah,
lunch.
You're right. I was going to say that's one of those dinners where you eat once a day.
Yeah, but it was the food was just spectacular, and you never felt rushed. It was like it was matinee day in New York, and the place was jammed, but it was the service was superb. Everything was just so smooth. I could see Chef Ramsay going into this place, turning around and walking out, and says, "What can I do?"
He said, "Mess it up, right?" Yeah.
I just mess it up.
Oh.
And then 2 or 3 doors away from the restaurant was the Jerry Orbach Theater in the Snapple Theater Complex, where we saw the Fantastics.
How was that?
Well,
they've been on Broadway for quite a while.
They've been off Broadway since 1960, except for about a year and a half in the mid 2000s. It ran continuously. From 1960 to like 2002 or something like that, and then at the down in Greenwich Village, and then they closed that playhouse, and then they reopened the show a couple of years later, Uptown. I think they're still using the same costumes and sets and that they used all those years, or if they're not, they haven't varied very much. Yeah. The original return on investment is like 19,000% or something like that. That's a show.
That's a good run.
It's a marathon. Heck of a run.
Well, it just clicks. It still clicks after all these years. I mean, it has so much charm and heart and wit and decent music and. Not decent music, some pretty terrific music, as a matter of fact.
Was the theater filled?
I can't.
There were 26 of us.
I don't remember.
Small theater.
It is a small theater, but it seats probably a couple hundred, and there were 26 of us.
I don't remember the
We were front row center, so our feet were literally on the stage, and we had to move our feet when the characters were running around. If I had stretched out as I ordinarily do, El Gallo would have flown into the first row on the side there.
What was the theme of the
show?
The show.
I
don't remember it all.
It's a story about 2 feuding neighbors who each have a daughter. I guess the wives are both deceased or whatever. They're never mentioned. Well, hardly mentioned. The girl's mother is mentioned because she gave her a necklace. And one has a son, one has a daughter, and like when these kids were born, they decided that this was going to be a match made in heaven, but the only way to get the kids together is to pretend to be feuding for all those years. And so they conspired to make it look like forbidden love, and of course the kids fall in love, and
That's all she wrote.
And to make sure the girl realizes that this is the guy for her, they have a fake. They hire the character El Gallo. It's just a fake name. He's an actor who will fake an abduction. So he's going to run off with the girl, and of course the hero will come in. The boyfriend next door save them. The two fathers will now happily end their feud, and the kids can get together. And that's Act One, and it's hilarious. And I first saw it last year for the first time, with David, and I turned to David. I said, "Well, what the heck are they going to do in Act Two? They've already resolved everything." And he just smiles. And Act Two is everything falls apart. All of a sudden everything nice every day is there's no adventure, there's no excitement, there's no fun, and the boy runs off to join the pirates and is tortured.
Pittsburgh?
No, the real pirates.
Real pirates.
Like
Jean Lafoot.
like Mandy Patinkin in The Princess Bride. Robert's the pirate, right? Yeah.
Oh, all right.
So, needless to say, it all gets resolved in the end. But it starts off with the El Gallo character being the narrator of the piece, explaining what's going on, and in the middle there's the Pyramus and Thisbe scene from Midsummer Night's Dream with the fake wall, and there's a mute in it who does nothing but hold props and catch things and never says a word. And he pretends to be the wall by holding a stick out. Okay, it's very slight set.
Yeah, I would say so.
Very. Absolutely marvelous. And of course, the opening song is "Try to Remember," and they also close with it. And there's a couple other terrific songs in between, and the rest ain't bad. The context songs are wonderful. It's a true ensemble piece. Each pair of characters gets to do something.
Now, what project is the noted presidential historian working on now?
Oh, he's deep into his next book, which is about the 1932 election. He's done 3 election books.
Right.
He's done 1920, 1960, and the current one that's out is 1948, plus a number of books on Calvin Coolidge, plus a number of other books. But in recent years, this is what he's been doing. So the 1932 election is a little bit different from his previous ones because it's not only Hoover and Roosevelt and how Roosevelt gets the nomination and all this stuff. He also parallels the other major election of 1932, the election of Adolf Hitler as Chancellor of Germany. And so he's pretty much... Well, he has completed the first draft of the American part of it, and now he's kind of deep into the German part.
Oh, good.
There's characters like Winston Churchill pop up periodically, things like that.
That sounds like a good book.
Oh,
That sounds like one I'd want to read.
Churchill. He's such a larger-than-life figure, and even all those years when he's doing nothing, he's larger than life, right? When he's in exile, he was in New York the day the stock market crashed, and I think he was in the hotel where the first guy jumped out the window. Yeah.
Maybe he pushed him.
Different floor. I'm sure his enemies looked into that. Yeah. Anyway, so we had just a lovely day. The megabus we picked up at Albany State took us into Midtown. We casually walked up to the restaurant and the theater. Took a subway back to catch the bus back. Had a little bit more food before we left. But just, nice way to kill a day.
Sounds like a fun day.
You mentioned, I think, on our previous show that you had watched Killing Kennedy.
I think we mentioned it off the air.
Was it off the air?
Yeah.
And, I DVD'd it, and I watched it the other night. It is unbelievable. I thought it's one of the best
Docudramas,
I've ever seen. I mean, these guys, the acting was spot on, but the way they brought in the history of both the gentlemen,
right?
involved.
And it wasn't whitewashed either. It had Kennedy and his peccadillos, and certainly Oswald and his craziness, and
it was
and his beating his wife, and
it was very, very well done. And there's, of course, we were young when it happened, but I'm watching and said, oh yeah.
Right.
Because I remember that now. Yeah, I hadn't quite thought of it like that, but I thought it was very, very well done. And
it was really gripping, and they're running the parallels. And they didn't overemphasize it, but the fact that Marina and Jackie were pregnant at the same time, and that the pregnancies, had an effect on the relationship with the husbands. They for all the. For all the strain in the Kennedy marriage that was going on in those years, and there was a lot, Jackie actually ran off to Europe and stayed there for a good long time until he finally says, Jackie, I really think you should be coming home. Yeah. After the baby died, after Patrick died, they say they grew incredibly close to each other. And if you looked at the documentary they were also showing the same night I saw Killing Kennedy about the 48 hours leading up to the assassination, you could just see from the footage that they were clearly enjoying each other's company and enjoying the trip, and things could not have been better. I mean, it was probably the happiest day they'd had since the day they got married. Everything was just going great, and and in 3 seconds. The world turns.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I thought it was interesting how they brought in the FBI's involvement with Oswald prior to, I remember saying, oh yeah, the FBI had looked into, but the way they showed it, you can see, they really had this guy on the radar for a long time, and it didn't take long that day to get him back on the radar.
Was, because we didn't know that all on the first day. That didn't. A lot of that didn't come out till later and later and later. But to see it all in almost real time that we were watching this here, it was amazing how quickly they had all the elements of the crime. And the scene where they first realized the one guy missing from the school book depository was Lee Harvey Oswald, and they say to the policeman, "We got to go pick up Lee Harvey Oswald." He says, "Don't bother. He's sitting in the next room. He's the guy who murdered Tibbetts, the police officer." And so they were actually on their way to try to find him and pick him up, and found that he was already there.
Yeah. And like I said,
and the arrogance of Oswald.
He was dying to be in the spotlight and have somebody pay attention to him. And he had his chance for a day and a half, and that was the end of that. It didn't last very long. It was interesting that the one scene where he's sitting there talking to himself and he's imagining he's got all these reporters about his trip in Russia, what were you doing, what are you doing here, that he was going to be the spotlight character, and he comes back to, don't you want to ask me? No, we don't want to ask you. Well, you want? No, we don't.
No.
I mean, it just deflated everything that he'd built his life up to be to that point. And the other thing that was interesting, there was an article in the Post last week, and I'd read it, and then when they showed the movie, they talked about how Jackie framed everything over the next 2 days to the reporter who wrote the article for Look magazine. And that was exactly how the movie finished up where this was Camelot.
Right.
You know, and how everything has changed.
Right. Camelot was never mentioned until his death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it took a life of its own.
Yeah.
You know, and the fact that she, you know, cornered this reporter and she dictated him, then she went back and had a chance to edit it before it was published,
Right.
so that everything that she wanted him to be remembered for and how he's to be remembered, she had created.
And God
that's
bless
what
her for
people
that.
know.
'Cause,
And that's what people know.
Yeah.
Her strength in those first few hours and days was unbelievable. Unbelievable. You know, Mrs. Kennedy will send for your luggage so you can change into fresh clothes. No, I want them to see
What they did
they did to Jack. Yeah. You know, I want them to see the blood and the brains all over my cute pink outfit, and it was memorable. And of course, she, you know, and as soon as she got back to the White House, you know, like the next day, she was teaching John how to salute,
That's right.
and so that when that moment came, the iconic photograph was
The spontaneous salute. Maybe it wasn't
well, it
quite
doesn't matter how
spontaneous.
spontaneous it was. The fact that he did it, wow. But you know, with her black mantilla and just maintaining her poise.
They created
holy
that.
mackerel.
They dug and built the eternal flame in 2 days to be there forever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was a.
Where the heck are they running the gas line from? It was probably a
know.
12-mile gas
I have
line.
no idea where it came from. That's
It went out about a month ago.
But it's gone out a couple of times over the
Yeah,
years. Yeah. Accidentally.
yeah. But it was very very well done. Docudrama. It was well acted. The pace was good. You knew how it was going to end,
Right,
But you wanted to see the.
but you
path
couldn't
it got
put it
there.
down.
No, exactly.
Right.
You know.
Right.
But it was-
Is David keeping track of what's going on with our current president so he can write a book on him? He's got a notebook, a big one.
He certainly keeps track of that stuff. But.
Boy. You know, they were talking yesterday about how isolated Obama was from the bill that was crafted, and
Isolated means paying no attention.
exactly.
Exactly.
You know, and not wanting to know but anything about it. And then when he was speaking yesterday about, you know, this is on me, it's my mistake, I didn't mean to mislead anybody. It's deja vu. Because he probably made a decision, yeah, we got to go back and we got to do this. He has no idea what the unintended consequences are going to be now of what he just did.
What he just did yesterday.
I've been spending
That's
6
right.
months
Right.
building my insurance company with the elimination of these people because of these new laws. We've taken them out. What are these companies going to have to do now
Yeah.
to bring these
Right.
people back in to where they were? What are they going to have
The
in
answer-
common?
Are they going to do it?
First of all, they're not required to do
No,
it.
they're not. It's up to the state.
And that's what he said.
And it's going to be.
And he said that purposely.
Right. So it was total BS.
Oh, no.
What?
Oh no, we're on podcast. It was bullshit.
The whole
Yeah.
52 minutes.
To Takawashi.
Was it that long?
52
Oh my
minutes.
God, he just fumbled for that long.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, you said 22 times. It was my mistake or it was on me.
Yep,
But
yep.
what this decision means now, he has no idea
Right.
what it's going to take to carry this thing out,
And
if they can carry it out.
And of course, what
And he kept saying that.
Yeah.
his
He
legal justification for it is the same unconstitutional justification he had for changing the immigration laws. Well, we're just not going to enforce it.
Yeah.
We're going to notify the insurance companies that yes, it would be a violation of the law, but no, we're not going to enforce the law. Well, of course, that's a violation of his oath of office. So and he's announcing that it's like Jerry DeCasatis is president, for God's sake.
You know, and so up to this point, he's blamed the insurance company for what has happened. No, I'm sorry. You can go back to your own insurance. Oh, you can't do it? Don't blame me. It's up
Right?
to
It's
the
all
insurance
it's the insurance
company.
company's done it.
Yeah.
Not my fault.
Now,
That's right. That's what he's saying.
that's right.
He basically said that in his speech that yeah, they can go back, but if they don't, I can't help that.
Don't blame you, don't blame me, blame that man behind the tree.
That's right. The man behind the curtain. Yeah. It just...
It's so infuriating, but apparently even the press is catching on to it at this point.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
O'Reilly last night, they hammered away on, this is unconstitutional. You can't...
Blatantly unconstitutional.
You can't... This is at least the second time on this piece of legislation he has done something that the law does not allow to be done.
Right.
It's not like I'm going to pass a law and we're going to change it here and by the time it passes. No, the law says this is what got me. You don't have the unilateral ability to say no.
Right. And he's, then he exempts all his friends and, and not his enemies.
Yeah, big court.
Which is the whole thing is a house of cards that is starting to fall apart now that it's being implemented. Little noticed was a legal case that started moving forward a couple of days ago. You'll recall that the only justification that the Supreme Court was able to give for upholding the constitutionality of Obamacare was that it was a tax, and therefore was okay. Right. That was Roberts' decision. Well, the case going forward now is, if that's the case, if that's the only justification, then the bill is unconstitutional because it originated in the Senate and not in the House of Representatives, where all taxation has to originate according to the Constitution of the United States in black and white.
But they're trying to change that. They're trying to change that constitutional entity that says that everything.
Well, they may try to change it. They need 2/3 of the House and 3/4 of the state legislature.
Call it an amendment.
But you know how. But they paid lip service to that in passing Obamacare in this manner. You forget the details of these things if you ever knew them. Here's what they did. Here's what Reid did. How Reid originated Obamacare in the Senate. The House of Representatives sent over a bill on veterans benefits. One of those innocuous, everybody's for it resolutions. He stripped the bill of all its language and substituted the Obamacare bill, as though that would get around the constitutional prohibition of the thing originating in the House. So that's how they did it. The original bill says a bill to benefit all the worthy veterans or something like that.
They on the computer for the past 3 days, every once in a while something would come up and they're looking for your vote to impeach the president.
We all know the Senate will never go for that. So it's a waste of time. But he has certainly committed numerous impeachable offenses. And that's the only way you can stop him. If he just decides, I'm not going to enforce the laws of the United States that I took the oath to uphold, the only way to stop him is to remove him. And then what do you got? You got Joe Biden, who says it's okay, but the great majority of people don't care about the Constitution anyway, is what Biden said.
Boy.
And sadly, he's probably right.
And we've got a corporation council that thinks the same way.
That's right. They're all the same.
That's going to be interesting the first of the year.
Oh, wow. You want to switch gears now? Yeah.
Wow.
It was nice. Just a different part of the same gear.
Yeah, it's more local.
Go ahead.
I went to Town and Country for I pick up my sub the other day for lunch, and
not a great place. Boy, their food is terrific.
Oh, absolutely. Fast service. They've got a great business. You can eat in or take it out now and stuff. But the Eater Inns, where it was I believe the County Republican caucuses was all up there.
Oh yeah.
There was probably about 8 or 9 of them sitting around the table with DeMeza and Barone up there. Preparing for the
let's see, probably Marco Zumbolo,
yes, it was.
Patsy Baya.
Yeah.
Sometimes they bring in the county treasurer. Is he there?
I didn't recognize the one guy that was there.
Barbara Wheeler is usually with them.
Yeah.
Well, she doesn't have lunch with them.
No. Yes, she does.
Does she?
Occasionally, yeah.
Really? I've never seen her. Oh, yeah, I guess you're right. Yes, I have seen her with them.
It was an all-boys club the other day. But it was interesting. Then you read about what our aldermen who were elected or would like to meet with her En
as a
masse.
group.
But you know what? There's something to be said for that, because now everybody hears it. It can't come back. Well, no, that's not what I told you. You've
Right,
got 3
exactly.
people. No, we did hear you. Okay, it's
Right.
not what you told him.
Well, you know why they do that? They do that to avoid the open meetings
That's
law.
right.
If she meets with 3 of them or more, then it has to be announced and open to the public.
Right.
Well, you know what? It should be open to the public. If she's got things to say about,
But no, not right now.
well, let's
Because
see.
they're not in office.
They're-
They
yeah,
didn't
they're
take their oath yet.
Well, that's true of most of them. You're right. But in any event, that's
Yeah.
the reason she wants to do that. But why should they meet with her individually? You know,
Well, you know, it's
let's all be there. Let's hammer it out.
Yeah,
And really, let's open it to the public. You know, if you're going to discuss philosophies of government, plans for the future, so what if everybody's candid? Let everybody be candid. What's wrong with that?
it's never done.
But jeepers. We can't do that. People might find out what we're actually thinking.
Yeah.
You know.
You should do it on a podcast so they can hear and know.
That's right. We don't hold anything back here. Well, a couple of things.
Nothing.
No, nothing serious.
I think Joe Emmanuel wanted to do that once, one-on-one. Yeah.
Well, they had that thing. Remember, I don't know whether it was when you were there or not, when that New Bruges group was coming in, had to meet with these people one-on-one, and Mike Sierra made the woman cry. Yeah, I remember.
Well, I think she almost cried when I was there too.
Yeah.
Wasn't quite as blunt as Michael, but
Yeah.
you guys are crazy. You guys are crazy.
And it was crazy. Yeah. But, yeah. Speaking of crazy, along the same lines is somebody on Facebook started something with I'd like to hear the arguments against moving the train station downtown. Oh, jeepers! Where do you want to start? You know? Oh, but it's going to do great things. Really? For how many millions of tax dollars to move the station? That's closed. That's the station that's so important to the Amtrak system that it's been closed for the last 2 years.
I can't envision why or think of why it's such a great idea to have it downtown.
You know why? Because it's the only way that they'll be able to hook up the new bridge with Main Street, the pedestrian bridge. They'll run it through the train station so that there'll be a bridge over the tracks. Now, there really is no place to put this train station right now with the way the current roads are lined up, because the arterial, the ramp going over the bridge is in the way.
Yeah.
They'll take Terlecki's land by eminent domain.
Well, if they take it down, if they won't want to put it down there. They're going to want to put it. They want to put it like at the end of the pedestrian bridge and make it part of that project.
Yeah.
And there's no room for it.
Yeah, right where the
then they-
archaeological dig is.
Yeah, where the archaeological dig is.
Yeah.
So it's nuts. I mean, the whole thing is nuts. As I pointed out many times before, but again on Facebook last night, if the train station is such a spur to economic development, how come in the 40 years it's been in the West End, there's been no economic development on all those empty lots that are down there? And in fact, what businesses there were in the West End have mostly moved out or otherwise closed. Yeah. Yeah.
And where did they get the $15,000 to help fund that
The study?
that study?
Oh, it was a grant. It was a grant. It was one of those crony capitalism things where you.
No, the $15,000 was, which was her part. The other, the $40,000 or something was a grant.
You mean we put 15,000 of our tax dollars into that?
That's the way I read the article the other night.
Oh my God.
Bob,
Yeah.
$100 a piece, the 3 of us can go down and figure something out and turn a report. When you see these reports, they spend 15, 20, 40,000. What the heck are they?
know.
Well,
What a freaking racket these
oh, it's a total racket. She wanted. You recall several years ago, she being Mayor Thane wanted to give $40,000 to Saratoga Associates to rewrite the city's zoning law to conform with the recommendations made in the city's 2003 master plan, right?
Yeah, I remember.
I came into Paul Woolman's office and I without telling him the amount, just the scope of the project, I said, guess how much? And he says, $5,000. I said, and when we got past 20, he was already rolling on the floor laughing. And when I got to 40, he damn near had a heart attack. So shortly thereafter, the two of us went up to City Hall to a meeting and addressed the Common Council. It's one of the few times I've been in City Hall since I left it, and announced that we would be willing to do this for the price of free. And the two of us were both former chairmen of the zoning board and former corporation councils and former city court judges where the zoning laws are enforced. So between the two of us, we had enough institutional knowledge to not only the present zoning code, but the zoning law, but the enforcement problems and this, that, and the other thing, more than anybody else in the world has with respect to the city of Amsterdam, right? Well, this of course shocked the mayor. She didn't quite know what to say at the time, but within a day or two she had recuperated and said, "I just don't trust those guys. I just don't trust those guys."
Yeah.
So, having her plan was to give it to Saratoga Associates with specific deadlines that by March 1st, or this is like in December. I forget what year it was. The year she took office, whatever that was, 2008, I think. By April, we're going to do this, and it'll be, the law will be before the council by June or something. It was like a 6-month process. The following weekend, I spent a few hours with the existing zoning ordinance and the master plan, and drafted the proposed legislation to implement the master plan. This was within 2 weeks, and presented it to the Common Council within 2 weeks of our first appearance. Okay, it was like during the Christmas break or something, and there it is, all laid out. There's no hidden secret. There's no secret changes. There's no hidden provisions allowing for construction, demolition, landfill on Edson Street or anything like that. Everything that's in there is exactly what was recommended in the master plan and nothing else. All right.
Nah.
And I presented it to the mayor and the Common Council. Never heard another word about it. This critical, but she did get enough feedback from the Common Council that the Saratoga Associates thing went by the by, so they put out RFPs on it, and the county was the low bidder at $20,000 to do it. And they said, well, Going and Woolman didn't submit a proposal. Yeah. Well, excuse me, you're either going to want our services for free or not. Don't expect us to fill out some forms to get them for free, it was already done. So now the county got paid, the county planning department got paid about $20,000. Basically what they did was they changed the names of some zones to make it more user-friendly or something like that. In other words, changing them from the way they're uniformly applied all over the state of New York into something that they think the dumb people of Amsterdam would understand, that's their opinion, not mine. And that was in, sometime late in 2009. This is now 5 years after we submitted it, right now, okay? Zoning ordinance has never been adopted, $20,000 went down the toilet. So yeah, it can be done really easily. And of course, I told a story the other day about doing the website in 2 hours as well. That was another $20,000. And I think she also spent $20,000 on the stationary logo, right?
I think they're
and the city slogan.
They're paying $1,000 a month or something to maintain that website.
I don't know. You know what I pay to maintain the Show with No Name website? I believe it's $6 a year or something like that. No, it's got to be more than that.
So what?
It's $5. No, it's $60 a year. $5 a
I was
month.
going $6 a month.
$5 a month, I think I pay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't-
But I paid for like 2 years in advance, so I
But
forget.
it's not run by, or overseen by, or created by the government.
Right.
Okay? Private industry can do things more efficiently, better,
So much
cheaper
better.
than the government. There is nothing that the government puts its hand on that isn't
Yeah, but-
worse off.
We prosecute.
Private industry can do that, but once they know they're doing it for a government, price goes up.
Oh, it's because it takes forever to get paid. Da, da, da,
The
da.
bureaucracy that's created, you have
Yeah.
to do it for them.
Yeah.
You know?
And plus, you have to give money to the campaigns. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, especially for professional services. I mean, that's just the open invitation to.
Well, professional services,
Yeah.
they don't.
I mean, do you know what the? Do you know how much the pro casino people put into this legislators' pockets or campaign? And I don't mean their pockets, of course. I mean their campaign funds.
Which go to their pockets.
Did I read that they had spent $25 million with all the?
That could be. Yeah.
Just,
Well,
Anyway.
but you see, there's a group organizing in Saratoga that's going to be fighting the
fighting it.
introduction of the casinos. They absolutely do not want the casinos up there in Saratoga. There's one of the lead point men up there is a math teacher from Ballston Spa High School, and he's just, it's going to be the ruination of the things that are currently in place at
Yeah.
Saratoga.
Yeah.
You know, and they were just talking this year that even with attendance down at the track, attendance in the community and the room usage was up because Saratoga itself has created itself as a destination
That's
point.
right.
Yeah.
They don't, you know, the track is part of it. It's not the point of it.
Right.
You know, their downtown is beautiful.
Sure it is.
It's a place you want to walk around, and they've got everything there. You know, and they've been pretty hard about not bringing in, you know, too many boxy type stores in the area to allow that downtown to exist.
Right.
Just like Cooperstown, you can't have in the city limits down there. You can't have the boxes. You can't have the McDonald's and stuff. They want to keep that downtown, which is another wonderful downtown.
Mm-hmm. You know, there's what's his name? The guy who wrote all the travel books, Bill Bryson. Bill Bryson. I don't know if you ever read his travel books. They are hilarious. His one about walking the Appalachian Trail is one of the funniest books I've ever written. But he's done stuff about, you know, when he lived in Great Britain and touring Europe and touring the United States and something. Well, one of his books, and I can't remember which one, he talks about looking for the perfect small town in America, and he goes around through New England, and he's from Iowa, and so he goes all over the country, and he writes about these different small towns he goes into, and he calls his perfect place Amalgam. You know, it's got the best of everything.
Yeah.
And his chapter on Cooperstown says this is as close to amalgam as I've ever seen. But for the fact that it doesn't quite fit his criteria because it has the Hall of Fame there and the whole baseball thing that's drawing people wholly aside from the charm of the town.
Right.
But he says, that is as perfect a match as amalgam as there is anywhere. And it is an absolutely charming place. You know, the lake is beautiful. The connection of the village with the lake. Yeah, the
Farmers Museum.
You got the Otasaga Hotel
and the Cooper Museum up there.
Yeah, and of course you can't get more American than baseball. And
No.
you know, the Doubleday Field is like the mecca of baseball.
It's great, you know. And again, the Hall of Fame is part of that community. It's not an appendage of.
Right.
You know, and so it is. It's just a great place to go down there. Even if you don't go to the Hall of Fame, you've got all the other things associated down there with it. It's just, James Fenimore Cooper from being down there, and what he wrote was right there. It's just. You know,
you can take the boat tour out there. You know, it's just if you've never done that, you got to do it because it's one of the. You know, there's not that much to see as like you. It's not like taking the circle tour of Manhattan.
No.
Look at this, look at that. But it is just beautiful.
Lake. You know, I can remember going with my grandparents down to Cooperstown when I was, you know, five or six. You know, and we went to the Farmers Museum there, and we saw the Cardiff Giant.
Yes, yes.
You know, and wow. And it was, you know, you buy the rock candy there. And when you take the boat tour, you go up there and you see the lighthouse that was built by the DPW during the Depression up there. They put people to work building that. It's just a real comfortable place to be, you know, and it's close enough but far enough away from here.
Oh,
you know?
I did court down there a couple of times. So once for a month, they sent me down there to be the acting family court judge because one of their judges had resigned and moved to Arizona or something, and put me up at the Tunnicliffe Inn, which is on one of those side streets off of the main drag there, and you know, just a charming inn with the. I had eaten there previously a couple of times. You know, it's just got great pub food and you know, the best chili in the Northeast, and just wonderful. And the rooms, you know, the room was, it's an old hotel. It had that old hotel charm to it, you know. And they put me up there. I'm 50 miles from home, you know, and they are like so isolated from the rest of the universe that when I first went into the court, the chief clerk says to me, where is Montgomery County? I said, it's adjacent to Otsego County. You know, in fact, Montgomery County is probably about a 15-minute drive from here. You know, but no idea. We're, you know,
Well,
we're adjacent at Sprout Brook.
but they are connected the other way.
Right, they're connected to Oneonta and Delaware County and all that.
It's just like, you know, St. Johnsville is to the county there.
It is more Little Falls,
you know, just by
they go to Utica to shop.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but it's just such a nice town. I mean, you can get there and walk, and they're doing a lot of construction down there now, though.
Yeah, I haven't been down in a while.
Yeah,
10 years.
But it's a 50-minute drive from where we're sitting now.
How do you go?
I always go through Sprout Brook so I can go past Henry Kaiser's house. So I take Route 10 out of Canajoharie and then take the road to Buell and Sprout Brook, and then from Sprout Brook take the road up to Cherry Valley, and take the back road into Cooperstown along the hills, along the hill.
The west side,
the east side of the hills. So it dumps you out just south of Cooperstown, right where they now hold the Hall of Fame inductions at the athletic complex there. So you're then you could actually walk to downtown from where it connects with the Cooperstown Road.
Yeah, we go up through Fort Plain.
Fort Plain to take the Route 80.
Yeah, come in there.
Oh, and the other way is to go through Salt Springville, which is along the eastern side of the lake, and then hooks up into Montgomery County, and then goes down into Canajoharie the other way.
Yeah.
So that's like in between the other two.
And there's so many unique ways. All roads lead to Cooperstown.
Yes, it's like Gettysburg.
Yeah. They had a series thing in Gettysburg last night too on PBS. Is really good.
I almost watched that. I think I had to watch the second half of Chef Ramsay's new season where they were in this Italian restaurant in the north end of Boston. There's no way that place is going to survive. however good it looked by the end of the show, no way.
We'll loop back in, but we were talking about Kennedy. They had a special on the 1963 Army-Navy game, and they tied that into Kennedy, how his affiliation with the Navy and the Academy was so strong, and how he identified so much with this event because at the time it was you know, it was as big as any of the New Year bowls was.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, sure.
And you know, you had 100,000 people down at Franklin Field in Philadelphia for the game. You had the Corps cadets and the midshipmen there, and they talked to Staubach and Joe Bellino.
Oh,
and
yeah,
Dawkins
yeah.
and Raleigh Stitchway. You know, and how, you know. They put the game off for 2 weeks because of the assassination. Because the game is supposed to be played
that's
Saturday
Sunday.
after
That's
Thanksgiving.
Saturday. Yeah.
So they put it off, and how the air was just so morbid basically at the beginning of the game. But once the game started, it was so alive, and the players were talking. You could just feel this energy because of the attachment he had there and how much he enjoyed that. Joe Bellino was saying how he won the Heisman for Navy in 1960 when he went to meet Kennedy at the White House. He was invited down there, and he says, you know, I don't want to feel pompous, but at that minute, he would have traded anything he had to be me. He'd rather be the Heisman Trophy winner from the Naval Academy than to be president at that time.
Yeah.
And how the game.
Well, he wasn't crazy about the idea of being president. You know, he was just doing what Dad wanted.
Yeah. Well, it should have been Joe.
Should have been
Just like they said in the
supposed to be
thing.
Joe.
And at the end of the Navy, that game ended really poorly because the Army was on the 2-yard line and they blew the time at the end. They didn't get another playoff, and how bad everybody felt about it. And the guys basically, well, this is the way it should have ended today. It kind of not the way it always has. But it was an hour show, and it was great. Misha watched, he said, well, this is a really good program about the game, you know. And it's funny, you see these guys run around, they got a single face bar down under their nose on there, you know. And
well, you know, that whole thing was just meant, the whole Kennedy administration read like a novel, you know. When you get right down to it, is all these epic things like the Civil War. You know, it was just Homeric. You know?
Yeah, you had the fiasco with the Bay of Pigs,
right?
And then you had the wonderful culmination of the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Right.
How that was it, and they talked, you know, in the
Berlin Wall.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on, and the guys from the academy, when they were talking, they said, you know, we were really concerned about the missile crisis because anything happens, the seniors are off the war and the juniors are out in 6 months, and they were going to be going.
Right.
You know, that's what would have happened. They went and spent their whole time there, and they felt so elated that he was able to take them out of that and get on. You know.
You know, you can argue that over and over and over, but in the end, we had peace and really gave up nothing for it. You know, other than letting Castro stay in Cuba and
taking some missiles out of Turkey, and nobody knew about that.
Right.
That was kind of the secret deal.
Yeah, and it had to be, you know, and apparently Kennedy had already ordered the missiles out of Turkey, and they hadn't bothered to do it yet. And all of a sudden now he's faced with an ultimatum to you do this or else. And he was already planning on doing it. Now he couldn't, and so they had to do it like 6 months later or something like that.
Yeah.
But
it was,
it really was a triumph of diplomacy.
And his presidency, as sure as it was, there was a whole lot of shit going down in there between those things. You know, and one. He listened to the generals, and then didn't listen to the generals, and the next time he didn't listen to them, and it just shows how fluid situations become, and how you have to be
in a short period of time, 1,000 days. He was in office,
and how capable you have to be, and how engaged you have to be, because that was one of his things. He said, "Well, I wasn't
paying attention.
I wasn't paying attention at the Bay of Pigs.
Right.
I'm paying attention now, and so are they." You're going to pay attention. You know, you have to be hands-on. You don't have to know everything about everything.
But you have to be.
You have to know enough of everything to be able to know that you can trust somebody and they're going to have the solution, which is not the case in Washington now. It purely
there's
isn't.
a great line in that. I want options on the Cuban Missile Crisis. I want options. I listened to you, and it's not a put down of the general. I mean, the Bay of Pigs thing was a fiasco from end to end, but there were a lot of blame to go around, and Kennedy deserved it.
Yeah.
and of course it wrecked his summit with Khrushchev, because now he goes in as the weakling, because he didn't follow through. First we promise the air cover, then we don't give it, then for some reason they land the guerrillas on the wrong side of the river, and then so it makes it impossible for them to hook up with with their allies. It was just a freaking mess. And then he, it didn't show it, but I remember. Was it maybe a year later after the Bay of Pigs? He worked out a deal where Castro got all these tractors and stuff, and we got the prisoners back. Another triumph of diplomacy is say, well, you're giving in to Castro. Well, all these guys came home to their families too, including people I know who came to Amsterdam afterwards. Yeah,
and it was really hard on him because he was a military man. He'd been in the Navy, and not to be able to manage that first situation the way he was capable of, I think it really hit home twice with him on there what I should have done and how we should have done. But you got to remember too, though, some of this is already pre-planned before he took office.
Oh, sure. But it's not like he didn't know about it.
No, not didn't know about it.
As a matter of fact, Bay of Pigs, Eisenhower was going to do it, and then said, no, I can't. I cannot start this and turn it over to another president. So it was put off until April deliberately because I think Eisenhower planned it for December after the election when Nixon was elected, which would have made it possible. It would have been the same, continuation of the same people. But wow, watching that 48-hour thing and the 48 hours leading up to the assassination. And watching how Kennedy is connecting to those people in Texas, most of whom were pretty conservative and some even Republicans, but there was no way he was going to get beat in 1964, notwithstanding any polls showing that it was close or not. People liked him.
Yeah, they did.
Like there was no way Reagan was going to get defeated in 1984 unless he started making doilies on national television or something. But when you connect with the folks at that level,
that's right.
You're not going to lose,
right.
Because if they like him, and that's it. And they may not think he's the greatest president we ever had, but they're comfortable with him. And he certainly showed he was capable during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and I don't think people were going to forget that necessarily.
Well, I think you're right on that.
But the personality coming through, he was so funny at those press conferences.
But he was real.
Yes.
About his funniness. It was not as staged.
Right.
Okay.
And it was as much self-deprecating as anything.
Yeah. Was it calculated out? Yeah. But he was able to connect.
Right. And his wit was natural.
Yeah. He was, as much as I didn't like him as president, because I didn't like some of his policies, but he had a real, like some of the stuff that Clinton had. Clinton had some of that affability that people really liked, despite how
thoroughly capable guy, but not as nice.
But people, okay, which is so different than.
David tells this wonderful story about the Kennedy campaigning in the West Virginia primary. And of course, Kennedy is a child of privilege, as they come. His father was nouveau riche, had more money than Midas. I was going to say Methuselah. That didn't make any sense. More money than Midas, but he's campaigning in West Virginia, and he's taking questions from the audience. Yeah, you may recall that it was a real risk going into West Virginia primary because West Virginia is like 98% Scots-Irish Protestant, right. Who hate Catholics, okay? But he went plowing in there and said, you know, if that's what you got to do, you got to do. But I'm going to make you do it. Anyway, this guy raises his hand. This beat up miner, coal miner, and he says, "Let me ask you something, Mr. Kennedy. You ever had a job in your life where you had to work with your hands and you know, and come home all grubby and this, that, and the other?" He says, "No, I have to say, I never had. You know, I grew up with a rich father, and I never had to work like that." And the guy says to him, "Well, let me tell you something. You haven't missed a damn thing." and so that notwithstanding his wealth, he was able to connect with those people on some human level, and it was remarkable, really remarkable.
You know, and he had what the last Republican presidential nominee didn't have. He didn't have that ability as an individual of wealth and privilege to have people understand that he understood them.
Right.
He didn't.
Right.
He didn't have that, where Kennedy did.
Yeah.
And you didn't, not everybody, but most people didn't find fault with him for being wealthy.
Most poor people admire the rich, even though they condemn them.
Right.
And it goes back. It goes back to Adams and Jefferson, for God's sakes. Thomas Jefferson is running against John Adams, and here's John Adams, a guy who literally pulled himself up by his bootstraps. It was pluck and luck, and you know, he was a small town farmer who went to Harvard and, when it was not like it is today, and you know, became a lawyer, and he just struggled along and built up his practice, and then devotes himself to his country and becomes ambassadors and whatever, on and on and on, and ultimately vice president. And meanwhile, the privileged guy, the guy who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth and has his plantation with his slaves and manages to blow most of the money that he was left by his relatives. He's considered the man of the people, whereas the guy who came from the people was considered the you know, the merchant class. You know? The guy who wants to be king.
Yeah.
It's good to be the king. But anyway, it was always thus. Or Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt, same thing. You know, Herbert Hoover was a millionaire, but he came from nothing. He came from nothing. Made it all the hard way.
What? People didn't look at it that way.
No. He's the candidate of the rich.
Yeah, and that's because of the lack of ability to relate to people, and for the people to see you in their shoes.
Yeah.
And you have to have that if you want you want to be genuinely successful. You have to have people believe you for who you are, not necessarily because you spout the same beliefs that they do. They understand you as a person.
Now, let's face it, a lot of people don't have an ideology. They just they connect. They either connect or they don't connect.
You know,
you haven't missed a damn thing.
That's a good line.
That is.
line.
That is.
And he probably laughed.
Yes. Yes, he would. He would have, I'm sure.
Yeah.
The other great line he had during that campaign when Martin Luther King Sr., who was a lifelong Republican, endorsed Nixon for president. And of course, you'll recall that Kennedy famously wrote to Martin Luther King when he was in jail, a letter of support, which got him the majority of the black vote. But when told that Martin Luther King, they asked him for his comment. Well, Martin Luther King Sr. has endorsed Mr. Nixon for president. What do you say about that? And he said, well, we all have fathers. And in that, in that single sentence, he's showing his filial devotion to his own father, but also saying, don't think just because my father was a fan of Adolf Hitler that I'm going to be the same way. Without saying it.
And harken back to the question the coal miner asked him. Kennedy didn't try to give him some BS answer. Well, I worked one time.
Right.
He didn't try to
Right.
He just says, no, I've never had to do that.
Right.
And people rather take honesty than false agreement.
Yeah.
Because they knew. They knew if he tried to bullshit him, it would have been over.
And then there's candidates now that I'm just going to BS you. I don't care if I'm just going to BS you anyhow. And people resent that. Just tell me the truth.
Right.
Okay? And then you can get on with it. Just tell me the truth. And Kennedy gave him an honest answer? No, I can't say I have.
Yeah, I think that guy in Toronto, if he just admitted it up front instead of denying it, it's amazing, isn't it?
I bought that when I was in a drunken stupor. That makes it all right.
There's my defense, right?
Yeah. That's when I was drinking. Holy.
I'm glad it's not just here. Oh, my goodness.
But he's not going to resign.
No, he's not. And they can't force him to either, I guess.
What's he got, 2 years left in his term?
I think so, yeah.
By all accounts, he's been a good mayor. And maybe that's the key. Maybe it's like the General Grant theory,
What's it, all the big guys are good mayors?
Yeah, well.
Big governors, Christie.
Wow. Anyway, let's see. So we've gotten past 1963. What else has happened since then? We probably, I'd like to, give David a call. Well, no, he'll call me anyway. He calls me every day. We should have him either on the radio show Tuesday or on the podcast next week, because he actually wrote a book on the Kennedy assassination. He's cited in other people's books.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he wrote, it was back when he was writing a series of young adult, youth books, like for 8th, 9th graders on different topics. The fall of end of the Cold War, he did a book on that, and he did one on the Kennedy assassination, a couple other things. There was some company that was doing a series of these books, and he wrote 3 or 4, I think, for that company. So, that was probably 20 years ago. So he's actually kind of well versed on the Kennedy assassination and the different theories. And,
give him a holler.
And I think he told me that he recently reread his own book just to refresh his recollection. That's what he does when he, occasionally he's asked to speak on some book he wrote 10 years ago, and he has to reread his own book because he doesn't. I remembered some of the details better than he did, which was pretty funny actually. He looked at it all. But the one thing, we mentioned off camera, or off mic, watching the third documentary that was on that night on National Geographic, which was, I think it was done in 2009. They took every stitch of footage that existed for the day of the assassination. And interviews with him, and live broadcasts from the Dallas stations and stuff like that, and put it all together on a timeline. Including, you'll be seeing Kennedy turn in one picture in color, and then he's in a videotape black and white, and you never miss a thing. It was superb because it gave you the feeling of the moment. When the first bulletins come across how quickly they had Oswald in custody, and the whole thing with Tippit, but watching the news clips come in and seeing the things they got wrong, and somebody said that Lyndon Johnson had collapsed at Parkland Memorial, and he either was shot himself or he had had a heart attack, and he was ashen and all this stuff, and turned out it was all baloney. And then when the stuff comes in about about Tippett and Oswald being in custody, and they're just literally handing the reporter this piece of paper. Do we know? Have we confirmed this? Well, somebody in the police station told us. And this is and all this interplay is going on while the cameras are rolling. Wow.
Yeah, and you could just see how loosey goosey everything was done. It was the consideration. They on the football documentary, Army-Navy game, they showed a little clip of Kennedy was getting off the airplane before the game, and he was being greeted by, at halftime, when he was changing sides of the field, they were lined up, and somebody jumps out of the stands, comes running out to go and grab and shake his hand. And he said that was the previous year, and it just showed how
it was all the most natural thing in the world.
Yeah, you know, like people were all freaked out by it, but it just shows, you know, the degree of protection that they had, and their mindset was entirely different how it is today.
And it all changed with that moment. Then after that, the FBI checked into everything. The Secret Service were on every rooftop, and all this stuff because of that. And the president was never able to go out in a crowd again as president. You know, all right there. Looking at, I mean, they had every reporter in the universe was crammed into this little hallway while they're moving Oswald back and forth from room to room, and he's talking to the reporters as he's walking down the hall, and then that one shot which they freeze framed, which was like on the Saturday. You know, Kennedy was shot on Friday, Oswald was shot on Sunday. The Saturday picture has Jack Ruby in the foreground, in front of the camera, just turning around so you can see his whole face, and he's closer to Oswald at that point than I am to you.
All cased out.
And he knew at that point that he could do it. That there would be no problem. And you know, and they're all. And all the reporters, you know, the security has never been tighter. They check everybody coming in and out of this building for their press credentials. You know, any one of those press guys could have shot the SOB. You know, but to me, the you know. I mean, it's obvious why there would be conspiracy theories about Ruby shooting Oswald. They began at that moment, all right? But when you watch it live like that, you remember the rage that everyone in the country felt. That you know, that if I had a gun,
I'd kill him.
I you know, how old were we at the time?
I was in 6th grade.
Yeah, I was in 7th, so I was 12. Right? I was 12 years old, and if I had a gun, I would have shot the son of a bitch. It's as simple as that, because that's what and especially with his arrogance about the whole thing. Oh, police brutality! Look, police brutality! Somebody get me a lawyer! I want. You know, he wanted the communist lawyer from Boston. You know, holy mackerel! Yeah. There's no way Oswald was involved in a conspiracy. He was too nuts. Nobody would put this guy in a conspiracy that would hook this guy. No, from either side. This is why when he, you know, why the Russians didn't trust him, and why the Cubans didn't trust him.
The FBI gave up on him because they said, "Would you hire this guy?"
Right. They no, he's just a flake. He's just a guy who would call talk shows. You know. But seriously, he was that kind of guy. I mean, he was down in New Orleans with his somewhere. I had the album. He went on a radio show like in I don't know, September of '63, defending Castro and debating with some anti-Castro guy, and he was in his element because people were listening to him. You know?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm a Marxist. Da-da-da-da.
That's what he wanted to be.
Of course, everybody forgets that he took a shot at General Walker in August of '63. That's why he bought the rifle to assassinate General Edwin Walker, who was right-wing general who had some charisma and was gaining a big political following.
And it just fueled his hatred because he was a failure now.
Right.
He's not dead. I didn't do it. He had to do it. He had to become notorious.
Yeah.
That was his goal in life. He wanted people to spend time talking to him and ask him about his opinions and what was going on.
You know, Donald Belisario, who the great TV producer who did Magnum PI and Quantum Leap and now NCIS. Great stuff. I mean, he really has put out quality material over the years. There was an episode of Quantum Leap he did where the protagonist becomes Lee Harvey Oswald, and it was wild. It included a scene where Oswald is in the Marines, peddling his Marxist crap to his fellow Marines. And the reason that scene was in there is because Belisario served with Oswald in the Marines, and that was a scene from his own life.
Really?
Where Oswald, you know, this is before he went to the Soviet Union, so we're talking back in the 50s. Oswald tried to convert him to communism.
I can't believe it. I don't understand how he could even survive in the Marines.
Well, he didn't for very long, I guess.
No.
I forget, was he? I don't think he was honorably discharged, was he? Wasn't he dishonorably discharged?
Was it dishonorably
or without comment?
Yeah,
yeah.
That might have been that. But, you know, it's funny. I was watching. They show the part where he's he's working the machine shop at the radio thing in Minsk, you know, and he just, how could anybody think this is the way things should be? Working in a place like that, you know, haven't been in Russia. You just look around how sterile and cold, literally cold, and uninviting it is in these places that people think this is what the world should all be like. It's just so oxymoronic to think that. You know, we treat these people bad, so we ought to have a Marxist government.
And ultimately, when they didn't treat him like a celebrity, he had to leave.
Yeah, he's one of the hired hands in here, one of the pieces of the machinery, the gears of communism.
Yeah.
He didn't like it. I can't go back there; it's too cold. That's what he told the guy in the embassy.
That was great material, because you say, well, how the hell did he get back in this country after renouncing his citizenship? Well, it's because the kind man in the embassy realizes he's dealing with a kid who doesn't know what he's getting into, and he's not going to wreck his life and just essentially lost the paperwork. You know, put it aside, and you know, if you give it some time to think about it, come back if you know.
Yeah, and his poor wife didn't have any idea what she was getting herself into.
Now, I'm virtually positive that she wrote her own book, which I think part of O'Reilly's thing that was made into the docudrama was based on. I think it was Marina Oswald, My Story, or something like that, which accounts for some of the intimate detail of that. But wow, I mean, you know, she's just sitting there with her friend watching the assassination on TV, not knowing that it's her husband who did it, and all of a sudden the FBI are running through the house, and did he have a gun? Yes, it's in the garage, and then it's not in the garage. But, you know, in the first few hours, they already knew he had gotten it from Sears Roebuck. They had the receipt. His palm print on the gun, the fingerprints on the bullets and on the shells. And
didn't cover his tracks very well, did he?
Well, no, but apparently it was a pretty spontaneous thing. He didn't know till like the night before what the route was.
That's right.
And once he realized it was going past his building, all of a sudden his failure as an assassin had a chance to be redeemed. It was all about the Bay of Pigs, I think, or in his crazy mind. I mean, he wasn't crazy. He wasn't delusional as such. You know, he didn't think he was Napoleon, but
he wanted to be.
He was certainly a narcissist. But apparently, he had a really brutal background, upbringing. Mary and I were reading an interview with his daughter, the older girl, well, of course, who's now well in her 50s. About how she was pretty young. She was only 2 or 3 at the time of the assassination, and she was really. I think Marina got remarried the following year to Porter, and so she always considered Porter her father, and it's more of an interesting thing that her real father was a presidential assassin. She seems to be remarkably well balanced, considering what she probably had to put up with from time to time.
For sure.
She tells the story how when she was like in 2nd grade, they were doing a thing on the presidents, and when they got to Kennedy, they had her go in another room and do some independent study while they discussed Kennedy. Right. I think she went by the name of Porter all that time. But her only concern, apparently, there were not only Lee, but both of his blood parents were really wacky people, and her only concern is that some offspring of theirs in some future generation, might come up with these same things. But who knows? Which brings to mind something I got this morning. I don't know if you guys ever read my murder mystery, The Evil Has Landed.
I haven't.
But it was based, The Evil Has Landed was based on a real murder case that I investigated as an assistant DA in 1982. It was Palm Sunday morning, early Palm Sunday morning of 1982. And I get a call from Sheriff Emery because the DA had his phone off the hook, and Guy Tomlinson, who was the first assistant DA, was out of town. So the only person they get a hold of was me at 4 in the morning, and it was like 3:30 because I was up there by 4. And it was a really interesting case factually and everything else, and I was there at the murder scene where the blood was still on 3 floors, and all the evidence was still being gathered, and they had all these witnesses who were the usual suspects in Fort Plain. I knew just about everybody in the case because I was the ADA for that area. I knew I'm pretty sure I had previously prosecuted the perpetrator. I had previously prosecuted the victim. I had previously prosecuted the star witnesses in the case. So I knew them all. Anyway, Penny Rose was the murderer, and I say that with quite a bit of confidence, not only because she was convicted by a jury of her peers, but because my investigation of the case and talking to her at the time and all that, there's no question that she did it. Anyway. At her sentencing, Jed Conboy was her defense attorney, who's now the district attorney.
Right.
And Jed put in evidence of her background in seeking at least a little mercy from the court and not getting a maximum sentence. The maximum sentence was 25 to life. And it was brutal stuff. About the physical and emotional abuse she took from her own mother. Stories I don't even want to tell now because I don't think I could. It was really, really horrible stuff, torture and all this stuff. And the girl was put into foster care at like the age of 8. And in those years, actually still now too, if a child is in foster care, once a year the family court has to review the case as to whether they should be in foster care or should go home. And every year when the case came up, the mother says, oh, she's still bad, I can't take her back because she's not ready to come home. As though the kid, was at fault,
Right.
and that's all Penny Rose ever knew, was that
It was her fault.
it was her fault that she wasn't going home. So there were like 10 kids in the Rose family. And so she lived her entire life in foster care, moving from home to home. They took reasonably good care of her, but nobody loved her, I mean, she was, and so, as a young woman, she gets involved in this, that, and the other thing, and she's bitter and violent, and the whole murder thing was the girl upstairs was making too much noise. That's all it was. And the girl upstairs had some mental problems too. And she just knocked down the door and threatened her and shut up, I'm tired of hearing about you. And at first she slashes her fairly mildly with her work knife. And then thinks about it and comes back later and finishes her off. And she's still not dead. At that point, the woman, the victim, bleeding profusely, manages to get from the third floor apartment down to the front door. And I think Penny actually had to exit her own apartment to develop an alibi for herself by going out on the roof and jumping down to the outside. So this presented a very complicated scenario to unravel the facts of the case, which is why it's such a good novel.
Okay.
And it was a good case to work on. Anyway, Penny gets sentenced to 20 to life. It's like the first time this sentencing defense ever worked, because the evidence was so horrible. Okay? They ended up keeping her the full 25 years, nevertheless. When she was eligible for parole after 20 years, they didn't give them. Meanwhile, she had breast cancer in prison and all this stuff. It was just miserable. Anyway, she died. I just got this morning. Died apparently last Saturday. Yeah. And she was living, it looks like some kind of halfway house or some kind of group home down in Garrison, New York, which is where Sister Agnes Clare is right now, actually.
Oh, really?
Down that, well, not in this house, but in Garrison, which is, not a very big place. This is interesting the way they put it. Sunrise, June 1956, sunset, November 2013. This is from a newspaper down there, Putnam County News and Recorder. Penny Rose entered into the presence of God on Saturday morning at her home in Garrison. Penny was a beloved staff member at the Walter Hoving home, where she served as an intake coordinator who was always a welcoming voice to women in distress. She was enrolled in the leadership program at the home. Penny enjoyed all things about the great outdoors, I imagine she did, including gardening. Many people remember Penny riding her old school blue bike with a white basket on the front. On nice days, Penny would pedal from Garrison to Cold Spring and have lunch and do a little shopping on Main Street. Penny was also a faithful member of the Church on the Hill, and if she couldn't find a ride to church, she would hop on her bike even in a rainstorm. Penny considered Walter Hoving Home founders John and Elsie Benton to be her parents. Penny epitomized the word survivor. She was a complex woman who enjoyed her measure of privacy. Her sweet personality and warm smile made her fast friends by the dozens. Penny will be sadly missed by her sisters at the Hoving home and her Church on the Hill family. A memorial service to celebrate her life will be held at the chapel at the Walter Hoving home on Saturday at 11 a.m. Reverend Tim Greco will officiate. In lieu of flowers, donations may be made in her memory to the Walter Hoving home. So she got some measure of peace in her last couple of years.
She must have made a big change in her life.
What a sad, awful life. And in my novel, I added something that didn't happen in real life. Well, a couple of things. One of which is she gets off in the trial. If I had put the facts the way they were and included her confession, well, there wouldn't have been much of a book. But she gets off on a technicality. And then in the end, finds her birth mother and murders her and is picked up. Picked up by the. Right, I hate to ruin the story for those of you who haven't read it, but it's been out there since 2008. If you haven't read it yet, still a good read, even knowing the ending. But it's interesting that in real life, she emotionally murdered her mother. The people at this house are her real parents, probably the only real parents she ever had. And, the fact that she had that at the end, even in her 50s, is
How
is a
old
good
was she
thing.
when the murder happened?
She has not, what?
When she murdered the
How old was she then?
Yeah.
Let's see, that was, she would have been about 26.
Really?
Yep. Yep.
In our community,
Fort Plain, there was only one 3-story building there, wasn't there?
Well, yes.
Downtown.
Yes, she lived just off of downtown, and yeah.
in our community, we have lots of stories like that going on every day.
And they don't end in
And,
murder.
and
Yeah.
then-
Don't end it, yeah.
We always,
Yeah.
I told the teachers at school time and time again, you don't know where these kids are
No,
coming
you
from or
don't.
where they're
Right.
going. I want you to say good morning to every one of them when they come in and goodbye, because that could be the only kind words these kids are going to hear every day. And though we are similar to Schenectady and Albany and Troy, I would venture to say we have a higher percentage of those types of situations here than these other communities, because we've got kids that come from awful home situations that impede beyond measure their ability to come and take in what we're offering here every day for them, because their lives outside of here are, you cannot describe some of them, and you can't imagine some of them, because as much as we say we try to understand, we don't live like that.
Right.
We aren't in these kids' shoes. The teachers they're all middle class, upper middle class people, and their homes are so dissimilar to what the kids have that, surprisingly little. We read all the time in the paper about events that there aren't more
Right.
of these situations here. And you can see in Schenectady now how things have degenerated for a whole lot of reasons. I was talking to our superintendent yesterday on the phone. I said, just be thankful right now we're not Schenectady.
Yes.
Yeah.
With what's going on
Right.
down there, or even what's going on in Gilliland, what recently happened over there. It's just got some really difficult situations that we do not have in any part of the community a way to deal successfully with the conditions.
I was twice social services attorney. The first time I burned out in about a year. I mean, just burned out, because I was seeing things that just were not in my known existence. I mean, and it was like every freaking day, because I prosecuted all the child abuse cases and helped investigate some of them. The turnover among caseworkers in the child abuse section is huge, and a lot of them end up in the same field but in desk jobs answering the phone in Albany, because when you actually have to go to these houses and deal with these families, it's because you can't communicate with them. I was talking to one of the former social workers yesterday, and all of a sudden we started swapping yarns about people that we both worked on years ago. As one of the family names came up, and it brought back like the worst child abuse case I had ever seen. And I remember the lawyer as I'm describing this case to Judge Katina, I remember the lawyer on the other side saying, I don't know what's going on here. The social service department is making out like my client is some kind of monster. And I said, if 10% of what these accusations are true, he's the worst monster I've ever seen in my life. And he was. We ended up taking all the kids. I mean, the one kid never. The one girl was already like 13, and she was already a wreck and remained her. She was broken. It couldn't be put here. And then after the case, the woman had twins. The mother had twins, and we took them at birth, and they were fortunately adopted into a nice family, and that I knew actually, and of course. The real family, I was just privy to the information because of the job. And years later, I saw the kids as they were growing up, and
you saved them.
They benefited from a good, loving family, and they couldn't have been more loved than they were. But those kids. As a matter of fact, in my novel, I included that one girl's experience with her father as though it were my Penny Rose character, who, by the way, in my novel is called Daisy Nichols. That was really clever, right? But jeepers. Then I became family court judge, and I was listening to this stuff every day, and every once in a while somebody will say, do you miss being a family court judge? And I said, the day after they removed me, I felt bad. The day after that, I was 15 years younger, and I've never looked back. There is not a morning I have woken up in all these 12 years that I have said to myself, geez, I wish I was in family court today. I may have missed $1 million worth of salary in that time period, but holy God, it was killing me. It was killing me. I had 1 month where, 1 month period in 1998 when I had to interview 5 different kids in my office, young kids, 7, 8, 9 years old, about whether or not the abuse that was alleged was true or not, and every one of them it was true. Even the one kid was denied the whole thing like a robot, programmed to deny it like a robot. And I'm telling you, you cannot go home and sleep at night. There's, you can say you leave it at the door at 5 o'clock, but there is no way you can do it. There is no way you can do it. And all you can do is, when it's over, you just do your best never to look back. Boy, it's a crummy job. And let me tell you, I admire the ones who can keep at it. I don't know how Phil does it. He's seeing the same families I did.
Just maybe.
So God bless him. I just anybody who's willing to do that has got my respect. Anyway. So, heard any good jokes lately?
I think it was one on the TV yesterday about noontime. That guy from Washington there was talking. That was a pretty good joke.
Yeah, the joke's on us. We're stuck with it.
Oh, man. All right, we got a little bit of time. I'm not going to run the full 2 hours here, but it'll take too long to upload it. But I'm kind of looking forward to January 1st, that first meeting of the Common Council.
So am I. The other night they had a meeting at City Hall, and I wanted to go. What was going to happen? I knew who was going to be there, and I said, do I want to get involved again? So I didn't go, but I saw the picture in the paper that Joe Manuel was there, Ron Barone, and a couple of the other new politicians were there. Because they're going to start observing of what's going on.
Well, they should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when they meet all together, I want to be there.
I guess since the radio program, they've confirmed the victories of Matt Agresta as controller, so
Yes,
he will start almost immediately. They have to wait for the military ballots to come in next Tuesday before they can certify the election, but there's not enough out there to make the difference.
Yeah.
And then Terry Beniak did win, who's the only Democrat I endorsed who won.
My
It was
grandson.
close,
My
too.
grandson.
It was very
less than
close.
10.
Well, I think it ended up. Well, let's
Nine?
see.
I thought it was like
It was
8 or 9,
9, went to
right?
11, ended up at 10.
10.
Yeah, yeah.
He's my grandson's father-in-law.
Okay then. That's good enough reason. That makes him a relative of all of us.
Right.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. I was afraid I wasn't related to any of these people.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, you know, I guess
And my
we're
other-
cousins to Tom Quackenbush too, right?
And my
Are
other-
you related to him or not? Or is
My other grandson
know.
was an aide for Oswald.
well, there you go.
There's you go. So who I didn't support.
It'll be interesting to see how the new county legislature really functions. It's gonna,
You
but
know-
having a lot of new people in it, it's good because they don't have to unlearn
Right.
what they did before.
Right.
But it'll be, you know, they got some tough issues.
What's going to be interesting with the city council is what they're going to do with the corporation council January 1.
I think it's fascinating because I think under the charter they can put their own corporation council in since the mayor didn't appoint anybody after Jerry was defeated.
And I told Joe Isabel that every time he says that she kept appointing him, I said all you
No,
got to
she
do is
didn't.
go in there.
Did once.
She twice she appointed him. Once when they rejected him.
Once he was rejected, he was rejected.
I says, but she reappointed him. She says that she can do that as he said that.
because he said it. So,
I-
so
And I told these guys, this all you've got to do is go in there with an attorney that you want.
right,
I
appoint
says,
him
and at
let the
that
controller
meeting-
pay him.
That's right. At that meeting, you reject hers, and this is the guy you appoint.
Right.
I said, you got to wait the 90 days, but
Who are they gonna
Well, no,
appoint?
I don't think they have to wait the 90 days at this point because her 90 days have passed. They've got the right to do it.
now they
They have the right to do it on January 1st because she failed to make the appointment within 90 days. She can try to
this
appoint
is a-
somebody or even somebody else at this point, but they still have the right under the charter because the 90 days passed without an appointment. They still have the right to appoint whoever they want under the charter. That being the case, I see nothing that keeps them legally from doing it. Now, so all they have to do is make the appointment, and the controller can pay who they appointed.
Right.
If Jerry doesn't like it, and he thinks that he is still the corporation counsel, he can take it to court, and the court can decide the issue. But meanwhile, the only way to do anything about it is to actually go ahead and do it.
Yeah. Have you heard anything about the injunction with Joe the Pro?
No, I have not heard. I think it's perfectly true that the golf commission is improperly constituted since there's two people who don't live in the city on the board. I mean that's just basic law.
And that was a wonderful letter that the gal from the clubhouse wrote
Yes.
to the recorder.
She was very good.
Oh, I didn't see that.
It was.
Yeah.
Uh,
It was-
When was that? Wednesday's paper when I was away?
No.
It was the same thing that was in the paper that they reported.
Yeah.
But she wrote it, and her points were well taken. You know, she made them very clear. She was not. There was no
I did see
bitterness
that. I
or
did see
anger in
that.
there, and it was
Yeah.
just great. Now let's see what they're going to do because she's absolutely and all her points are right. She's absolutely correct on all the points.
They,
Yeah.
if somebody comes through, well, they don't have to. If somebody comes in with a proposal that the mayor likes, it's still got to go through the council.
Of course.
So
They can reject.
yeah, so the council can reappoint her at any time.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, they don't have to wait for.
And they can make the contract with Joe the Pro if they want to,
That's right. They can do anything they want right at this point.
assuming that somebody else doesn't get a contract between now and then.
Well, that's it. Well, Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but they still have to approve the contract.
The current
this
council will be
council.
doing it. And
Well,
So
yeah.
they could
Yeah.
beat the rush and walk out saying, well done.
Well, I don't think, they only got, well, they've got
well, I mean,
three.
that's why they rammed through that Riverlink Park contract as soon as the election was over.
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy.
Well, after January 1, they start working on the new budget. And no matter what happens, they can defund half the things that are in there if they don't like them. Let these guys
That's
work
right.
for nothing.
That's right.
Van Haslen, very,
Well, I think
very, very good guy, very nice guy.
Yeah, and we've said before, well, two of us anyway, we don't think the position should exist, and it doesn't
No,
under the charter.
No, right.
But if there is a guy who can do the job, he's the guy.
Exactly.
As a matter of fact, I think he'd probably make a terrific mayor if he was inclined in that direction. He's got that that native military organization which
Very knowledgeable.
and knowledgeable,
Very thorough.
very, very, very competent fellow.
Very thorough.
Nothing but thorough admiration for him. So yeah, no, I don't like the position, but if there's going to be that position, he's the guy.
Then now,
But they're going to cut it. I don't think there's any doubt they're going to cut it. I think they're going to
Rebecca-
cut Rebecca's position.
Rebecca's job, she's not civil service, so they can cut her right now or after the budget. The mayor, or not the mayor, the corporation council, Rebecca.
Well, they can certainly, even if they don't replace him, they can and should take back the raise because he has got no claim to that whatsoever as a holdover employee.
Yeah.
He may have a claim to his base salary that he carried over from the previous administration. Even that is questionable, but he's got no claim to the increase, none whatsoever. So they can cut that back.
Well, even his salary, they can cut it back.
Well, I think so. There's an argument about that, but there's no argument over the raise. There can be no argument over the raise because he's not the corporation counsel. He's just a holdover.
Right.
It's not like he took the position with that salary.
No.
He didn't. He took the position with the old salary.
As a holdover.
Now he'll rule that you can't do it, but who's going to? They shouldn't pay any attention to that.
Yeah, but they got a couple competent people on the council now.
Well, you got leaders on the council.
Yeah. So who won't put up with
Right.
with that bullshit?
Right. You said bullshit again.
Did I?
Yeah.
Well, you
It's
know what
okay.
that stuff that comes out of bulls. That's
Yeah. Caca.
Tatanka Washipi. That's buffalo shit.
so.
Dakota.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, like I say, I think, but since she's had so much problem with the people speaking up at the council meetings, all of a sudden, no more TV. She's blaming everything. I don't think she's blamed anybody.
It's Time Warner. Time Warner says we can.
I don't believe it.
I don't believe it either.
I don't believe it. I don't believe Time Warner says that you got to do this, you got to do that, because
Jim, when we were there, all it took to get on the air was to throw a switch in the closet.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, now they're saying that you got to have that special box.
Well, we had a special box. That's how we were able to do it.
No, at home. You got to pay another $1 a month for the box to pick up channel 16 and 17,
Well, that's okay.
and that's where the common council meeting is going to be.
Yeah, but a lot of people have the box already. What's the?
Yeah, well, okay, so I don't
No,
notice
it's a
that because I
different-
have the box already.
No, it's a different box.
It comes, if you got the digital program,
Yeah.
you get it. If you get the digital programming, you get it automatically. If you don't have the digital programming, you may have to get that extra box, which is free until next year. So
Right.
we got one of those too for the upstairs TV.
So we can see it.
So yeah, right, and then it'll cost $1 a month after that. They put EWTN in there too, and a couple other things that we shouldn't have to pay extra for.
They switched a lot of channels from the regular.
Oh,
from
they did.
regular
I'm having a
TV.
hard time keeping track of where the History channels are now.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all over the place. Actually.
Yeah. They
Half
were
the-
nice. They had that nice little.
But having the digital cable, I put everything I wanted on the favorites, and what I didn't want is not on the favorite. So it's indexed pretty well. I just hit the search for the favorites button.
Way.
Let's see. AMC is up in 100.
Well, let's see.
There's 2 or 3 channels that
All right, so
we used to watch occasionally.
Here's my Time Warner.
Yeah,
thing.
that's what I got.
Okay, you got one of these.
I
All
got
right.
one of those.
So you hit the search button, right? All right. Well, you're not going to see anything because the TV is not on. But when you hit the search button, it either shows you all the channels,
Yeah.
or if you hit the search button a second time, you can program it to only show your favorites, your favorite channels, so you can skip all the things you don't want to look at.
I don't have to start at channel 25 and go all the way through this.
No, you can just program your 50 favorite channels, or your 30 favorite channels, or your 20 favorite channels, or your 6 favorite channels. Or there's an option of just doing the ones you're subscribed to, so you can skip over all the movie channels and things like that. Yeah, very easily done once you get into it.
Huh.
Once you
And
read the
then
book.
and then
I don't understand the book.
and you program the favorites using this side thing here to we'll get you a menu up there where you can find where it says program favorites, and then you just go through it and asterisk them or whatever you do, and so then every time you hit the search favorites,
I'm only have to
it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
I did that when we got this new thing not long ago.
Oh.
And,
Oh,
yeah,
very good. Oh, thank you.
yeah.
I didn't know. Who knew?
Who knew?
Who knew?
Well, you
I
really got
voted for
there's
A.
all kinds of interesting things in there that you can do if you.
But I'm always afraid I'm going to do something
And
and,
then
I
not be
don't
able to
get
get it back.
anything.
Yeah.
And not get anything. Or I do it
You got to get
because
in,
I'm going so many things. I don't remember how I got there.
then
Right.
you get on the phone and say, hey,
Yeah.
You know what? Anytime, I know people criticize, but anytime I've ever had an issue with the TV and the cable and stuff, I've always gotten help when I call up. They've been
Yeah.
very good. And
Yeah.
Of course, maybe I preface it by saying, I always do, I say, please understand, you're speaking to the most technologically illiterate person in America. Okay, so go slow
yeah.
and explain.
I do the same thing.
You know, you tell them that, and they say, I understand. I said, well, I thank you very much. And then at the end, when they tell me, I say, make sure you tell your boss that you made somebody very happy today, so thank you very much. Till the next time I call, 'cause I can't remember! Oh, drive me nuts.
I suppose we ought to call it quits for today, but I'm having a good time. I'd go for another hour for you.
I got to take Tony to lunch today.
So we're here in the Reagan studio at Casa Bob. We welcome our 40th president. You're doing a great job. You're doing a great job, Ron. It'd be nice to be back in 1984 or so. Yeah.
It'd be nice if you were back here in
Yeah.
2013 with us too.
Yeah.
Bring some things
Yeah.
up.
Okay.
All right.
So let's see. Tomorrow I'm speaking at the Elks dinner, and
You have an elk for dinner?
I have an elk. I think. Isn't that what they serve?
I would think so on an elk
I
dinner.
don't know.
Moose Club would serve moose.
Tuesday night I was on with
haggis.
Ted Flint down at the former WPTR, which I think is WDCD or something like that.
How is that? I know you're kind of curious.
Wow, does he have, is he well sponsored? Let me tell you, it was an hour program like ours, but it had 20 minutes of commercials. Seriously. And I say, good for you. We don't do that on our show, but it went very well. He used to be here. He was at WCSS for a few years in the mid-'90s. So I remembered him vaguely, and he absolutely remembered me. So we had a nice chat. That went well. And then I think that about does it for my busy speaking schedule
So
for a
far.
while. So for a while. Well, I think I ought to do some book signings. In fact, I got a new batch coming in today, just in the nick of time, because I may sell a few tomorrow.
Why don't you go to Gloversville, up to the bookstore up there?
Well, maybe I will. It seems like quite a ways to go. I don't know if I'd be much interest up there for my book, but there might be.
Well, and I think just the subject matter of the book and how it was written, I think would be
I'm not saying they wouldn't like it if they read it. I mean, it's getting them to read it. I think everybody who's read it has liked it thus far.
Yeah. And some even loved it.
Some even loved it.
Yeah.
I'm one of them.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a strange thing to say, but it's like reading somebody else's book when I read it. Because you don't remember writing it.
I don't know. I think I only know one or two people in the book that you wrote about, but still, it was very, very interesting to me. I mean, I'm not from Amsterdam, so
it was interesting to see that things that Ted was interested in, because he only lived here a short time. He probably didn't know anybody in the book, but he particularly pointed out the Art Carter scenes and the Common Council, his last Common Council meeting. Yeah, you could relate to that. And so Common Council meetings haven't changed a whole lot over the years. It's just fewer aldermen. That's all. Right. And I initially cut that passage out of the book when I was, editing for Space. And, I said, well, this isn't really related to the war, and maybe, people will be offended by it who are on one side or the other. And then I showed it to Petrucia, and he says, leave that in. And I think it does add a nice touch to the book.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, the guy's been mayor for 10 years. He's there at his last Common Council meeting in his captain's uniform, ready to go off to war the next day. And by the time the aldermen get done squabbling, they all leave the room and nobody even says goodbye to him. let alone a resolution thanking you for your years of service.
Last man standing. Yeah.
And he's just sitting there, and he's the last one there in the room, and just looking around,
what about me?
Baffled. Jeepers. Anyway, so that does it for this week. We'll be back with our presidential assassination show next Friday,
That's right,
which will be the
22nd.
anniversary. We'll probably do the same thing on the radio on Tuesday, I would think, because that'll be our only chance to do that. Until then, I'm Bob Going with Gavin Murdoch and Jim Nicosia, and this has been the show with no name.